let me begin tonight with what can only be described as a political and economic thunderclap. Just moments ago, reports confirmed that former President Donald Trump is expected to drop tariffs tomorrow, following a week of escalating pressure and a particularly firm stance taken by Treasury Secretary Carney. Now, to many Americans, this might sound like another twist in the long-running saga of Trump's economic brinkmanship, but make no mistake, this decision reveals something much deeper about the inner contradictions of the U.S. capitalist system and the political theater that tries to keep it afloat. Standing firm in what you believe is one of the hardest and most defining acts of courage any human being can demonstrate. When the world begins to shake around you, when voices of authority and waves of doubt rise against you, that's when the true measure of your character reveals itself. There's something profoundly powerful about remaining still when everything around you demands surrender. History has never been shaped by those who simply followed. It has always been written by those who dared to stand tall in the storm, those who held on to their convictions even when standing alone meant being misunderstood, criticized, or attacked. Every great leader, every visionary, every reformer faced the same test, the temptation to bend their principles for comfort. And yet, the ones who changed the course of the world were those who refused to let fear dictate their direction. When Carney took a firm stand in that moment of political and economic turbulence, he wasn't just making a policy choice, he was embodying a timeless lesson about conviction. The world applauds success, but it often forgets the solitude that comes before it, the lonely nights of uncertainty when one must decide whether to yield or persist. You will face this same crossroad in your life. There will be moments when your truth clashes with the expectations of others, when your integrity becomes inconvenient, when doing what's right costs you opportunities, approval, or even peace of mind. But the ones who rise above mediocrity are not the ones who seek ease. They are the ones who stand on principle, no matter how fierce the resistance. You see, strength is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. The world respects firmness, not because it's stubborn, but because it's rare. People will test your boundaries. Circumstances will test your patience, and failures will test your faith. The moment you refuse to compromise your core values, something extraordinary happens. You begin to command respect even from those who disagree with you. And that respect doesn't come from arrogance or ego, it comes from clarity. When you know who you are, no one can confuse you about your worth or your purpose. There's a magnetic power in conviction. It draws the right people toward you, the right opportunities into your path, and it silences the noise of doubt. But that magnetism only activates when you choose to stay centered. Life will always try to pull you in opposite directions: ambition versus ethics, comfort versus courage, popularity versus authenticity. Standing firm doesn't mean you refuse to learn or adapt. It means you never trade your integrity for temporary approval. Because once you do, you set a pattern of surrender that will repeat itself every time pressure returns. Think about the great change makers, from leaders who challenged injustice to innovators who defied conventional wisdom. They all had one thing in common: unwavering belief in their purpose. They were told they were wrong, ridiculed for their ideas, isolated for their defiance. But they understood something most people miss: that every system, every institution, every social norm eventually bends to those who refuse to be bent by it. The courage to stand firm today becomes the foundation upon which tomorrow's victories are built. So when you find yourself surrounded by chaos or confronted by criticism, remember this: the world doesn't need more people who echo what's already accepted. It needs more voices that challenge what's broken. You might lose the comfort of approval, but you'll gain something far more valuable: self-respect, purpose, and the quiet power of knowing that your stance was never for applause, but for truth. Standing firm is not just an act of defiance, it's an act of creation. It's how new paths are made, how change begins, and how ordinary individuals transform into forces that history cannot ignore. Change has never come from waiting. It has never arrived neatly wrapped in timing, luck, or permission. Every meaningful transformation, personal, social, or economic, began because someone decided that enough was enough and took the first courageous step forward. The same principle applies to your life. If you keep waiting for perfect circumstances, the perfect opportunity, or the perfect sign, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, the perfect moment doesn't exist. It's created by action. There is immense power in deciding that today, not tomorrow, is the time to move. That decision alone separates those who lead from those who follow. When Trump announced the decision to drop tariffs after pressure from Carney's firm stand, it reminded the world of something fundamental: action reshapes outcomes. Whether you agree with the policy or not, the lesson remains clear. Momentum begins the moment someone refuses to be passive. The same holds true in your life. You cannot control the entire system around you, but you can control your initiative. The universe tends to reward those who dare to move when everyone else is frozen by hesitation. Change is not a reaction, it's a declaration. When you act, you declare to the world and to yourself that you are no longer content with where you stand. Most people spend years waiting for their environment to become more favorable, for people to support their vision, or for conditions to make it safe to start. But progress has never been safe. It's always been a leap, a test of courage that asks, how badly do you want to change your story? Every great revolution, invention, and movement began with an individual or a small group who acted without guarantees. They didn't wait for consensus. They created momentum by showing others what was possible. That's the same fire you must ignite within yourself. When you stop postponing and start acting, your life begins to accelerate in ways that waiting could never deliver. There's something magnetic about decisiveness. It draws energy, people, and opportunity toward you because it signals belief. Action communicates clarity. It tells the world that you are serious, that you're ready, and that you're willing to risk failure for growth. And ironically, that's when failure loses its power over you. Because once you commit, failure becomes feedback, not defeat. Every bold step forward refines your path, strengthens your resolve, and sharpens your vision. The longer you wait, the more your confidence erodes under the weight of doubt. But once you move, clarity returns. The people who change industries, communities, and even nations are never the ones who have all the answers. They're the ones who are willing to start despite not having them. They understand that momentum itself creates opportunity. You can't steer a parked car. It must be in motion before you can guide it. The same principle applies to your potential. Movement gives you direction, but standing still only multiplies uncertainty. Every action you take, no matter how small, sends a signal to your subconscious that you are capable, that you are in control and that you are ready for the next challenge. There will always be noise around you, people who doubt, circumstances that intimidate, risks that appear overwhelming. But remember, the world doesn't move for those who wait. It moves for those who decide. You may not be able to change everything, but you can change something. Your mindset, your habits, your willingness to take that first leap. That's how revolutions start, both in nations and in individuals. The greatest tragedy is not failure, it's stagnation, living a life shaped by hesitation rather than conviction. So when life presents you with uncertainty, treat it as an invitation, not a barrier. Act before you feel ready. Move before the world approves. Because change, whether in economies or in human hearts, has always belonged to those who were bold enough to begin. Persistence is one of the rarest and most powerful traits in human character. It is the silent engine behind every story of transformation, every rise from failure, every revolution that refused to fade away. Power, whether in politics, economics, or personal life, does not bow to talent, intelligence, or even luck. It bows to persistence. The person who keeps going when others stop, who stays focused when everyone else is distracted, becomes unstoppable. Every obstacle eventually yields to consistency. It's not the brilliance of a single act that changes destiny. It's the unwavering repetition of effort that shapes greatness over time. When we look at the economic world, we see this truth reflected everywhere. The rise and fall of policies, the fluctuations of markets, the battles of ideology, all are driven by persistence. When Carney stood firm against Trump's tariff position, it was persistence that made the difference. He didn't win through confrontation alone, he won through steadiness. In every sphere of life, persistence commands respect because it represents mastery over emotion. Anyone can start strong when excitement is high, but only the persistent keep walking when the applause fades and the path grows lonely. There's a seductive illusion in quick success. We're drawn to stories of overnight victories, instant breakthroughs, and effortless triumphs. But the truth beneath every overnight success is a long journey of invisible persistence, years of unseen effort, countless rejections, private doubts, and quiet endurance. Power respects persistence because persistence signals something deeper, belief. You don't keep fighting for what you don't truly believe in. Every time you persist, you are telling the world, I know where I'm going, even if you don't see it yet. And that conviction builds momentum that even failure cannot erase. Life will test that persistence. There will be moments when results don't match your effort, when your progress feels invisible, and when quitting feels like relief. That's the critical moment, the point where most people stop and where champions begin. Persistence is not blind stubbornness, it's strategic resilience. It's the ability to adapt your approach without abandoning your mission. When you keep moving forward, even 1 inch at a time, you create a rhythm that builds unshakable strength. Over time, the impossible begins to feel inevitable because you've trained your mind to see setbacks not as defeats, but as data, feedback that refines your next step. The world is built to test your endurance. Systems, circumstances, and even people will resist your growth because persistence exposes their complacency. But that resistance is proof that you're onto something powerful. The higher you climb, the stronger the wind blows. That's how life filters out those who only wanted the view from those who truly deserve the summit. The difference is not talent, it's endurance. and endurance is built in silence, in the hours when no one is watching, in the decisions that no one praises. Persistence doesn't guarantee an easy path, but it guarantees a meaningful one, because persistence transforms pressure into power. Every time you persist, you strengthen your will. Every time you continue despite fatigue, you build a foundation that no external force can shake. People who rely on bursts of inspiration burn out. Those who rely on persistence build empires. The real victory is not in achieving the goal, it's in becoming the kind of person who refuses to stop until they do. Think of every breakthrough in history, movements that overturned injustice, innovations that reshaped industries, individuals who turned rejection into legacy. None of them won because the world opened its doors. They won because they refused to walk away when those doors slammed shut. Persistence has a way of wearing down resistance. Time bows to the one who keeps showing up. So when life pushes back, push forward again, because persistence doesn't just earn power, it becomes power. And once you've mastered that, nothing and no one can take it from you. Strength is often misunderstood as something individual, something forged in isolation and proven through independence. But real strength, the kind that sustains progress and builds lasting impact, is born through connection. No one rises alone. Behind every success story, behind every transformation, there's a network of voices, hands, and hearts that made that rise possible. The myth of the self-made individual is a romantic illusion. What truly builds greatness is collaboration, the shared strength of people who believe in something together. Power expands when it's distributed, growth multiplies when it's shared. In every era, those who accomplished extraordinary things under